want to say good morning to everybody, and good afternoon if you're on the eastern side of the Atlantic. Um, I'm Ed Coburn, CEO of Cabot Wealth Network and a co-chair of Renewed, and you're going to be moderating the discussion today. Um, I want to start out by just sort of setting up the topic, and then I'll introduce our panelists, and we'll go from there. Um, Unquestionably, AI is the biggest topic in our industry at the moment, and probably for a good long time to come. And I'm not sure that yeah, I think the advent of the internet might have been sort of similarly um uh, momentous, although I think it's an open question, which is going to be a bigger pivot point when historians look back at this. So stay tuned. In the meantime, we all have to keep muddling through as best we can. And I say muddling, referring to myself. Our panelists, of course, are all over this. So and I can't imagine there's a muddle between the three of them. So I am delighted to. And one other thing I want to mention, because this is such a big topic, some of you may know we have an AI strategy council that has meetings periodically. That is only for premium members. Sorry, most of what we do is available to all comers. You don't have to pay for anything. It's available free. We do have a few things that are only available for premium members. We're a very lean, mean organization, but we do need a few dollars to keep the lights on and keep the trains moving on time. And that's one of them. But if you're interested in joining, I know Sue Stevens in London and Lindsay Lee here in the US would be happy to talk to you about what premium membership looks like and what it would cost you. So that's my little plug. And we are coming up October 17th, we have the next AI Council meeting, which is why I wanted to mention that to you. So all of you who are premium members, mark that on your calendar. So without further ado, we'll get into the conversation. I am very, very pleased to have three really smart people from our industry with us today. We have Rob Stewart, who is the Vice President and Chief Digital Officer at Mass Medical Society, which some of you may know, and some of you may more recognize the primary brand, New England Journal of Medicine, or NEJM. So that's what Rob is working with. And we have David Foster, who is the chairman of BVR, Business Valuation Resources, and also chairman of the Copyright Clearance Center, which has an entirely different set of experiences and perspectives on this. So David can share those perspectives with two hats on. And last and certainly not least, John Hitchcock, who is the Vice President and Managing Director at Energy Intelligence. Thank you for the three of you for joining us today, to the three of you for joining us today. We're going to start off with, if you can give me an idea of what your AI activities have been to date, and what's live and what's not yet live, but in development. And Rob, we'll start with you since I somehow listed you first in the opening.
Yeah, happy to start. Great to see everybody today. So for a live product, we have a journal that we launched called NEJM AI. So it's not an AI product as such, but it's about AI, and it's a place for clinicians to publish research where they're using AI in medicine. And that's a B2B product that we're using as an upsell that's being sold along with a B2B subscription to the New England Journal of Medicine. That's been out for, I think, about a year at this point. But we are using AI within that product to help us with our editorial workflows. We do first drafts of content generated using large language models. So it's sort of a real kind of experimentation area for us using this journal, and the editors there are young and interested in that tool. The other thing, we have a customer service chat bot that's going to launch in a couple of weeks that's focused on the top 5 questions that our customer service team gets as a way to help us reduce the amount of time it takes to get calls answered, and so we can put people on higher tier products. We're talking with various groups about how to do a co-pilot kind of function as keyword search disappears. We'll talk more about this, I'm sure. So we're looking at how we're going to do some sort of co-pilot for NEJM. And I'd say the last thing is we're using AI to gamify a free service on nejm.org, which is an image challenge app that's very, very popular, that's driven by advertising revenue. But we're using AI to gamify that, add additional questions to it so we can turn that into a paid product. Those are some of the things that are underway right now.
All right, sounds like a good amount that we'll have to talk about during the rest of the call. Thanks, Rob. David, how about BVR?
On the BVR side, we have AI running on top of our research database on a sort of PDF by PDF basis right now. So it's a sort of first step installation, and I'm glad to see we've got Renaud and Constantine and a bunch of other people who have been involved in it on this call, so they can chime in about the specific technology. But the 2 things I'd say about it are that the customer use of the AI at this very limited level is the results are pretty nice. They're good successful results. So even that little installation is sort of helping our customers access a broader range of our content. And the other thing we have is sort of a roadmap going forward over the next 6 months and then next year and beyond, of sort of opening that up in several different ways. One way is we're in the process right now of bringing industry research and other parts of research into this large database. So we're eliminating some of our partner products, or probably not eliminating, but reworking the licensing to bring that content under the AI platform. And then we're also planning on expanding the reach of the AI. The technology we have will sort of allow us to include multi-PDFs, to allow outside resources, to pull in more of our data sets. So the roadmap is to start sort of with this individual PDF level AI engine, expand outward until it's sort of a unified platform for all of our data products eventually. I would also just say on the CCC side, CCC has increased the cost of their licenses to firms in the medical, biomedical, which is CCC's strong point. So they've done 2, 3, 4, 5, 6% increases on AI uses going out, but I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So there's also increasing licensing and rights management options available for the use of AI.
Great. Wow. All right. Thanks, David. And John.
Well, it's appropriate for me to go last, because we're swimming madly trying to catch up with the likes of Rob and David and productizing AI. We have very narrowly focused to this point on producing an AI enhanced search. So it's all of our efforts are content directed, and that will become part of either its own standalone offering or embedded in everything that we do, depending on what we hear from clients as we go out and have them sample this in test cases. I love to talk a lot about the process, what we're taking that as part of the show. I'm sure we'll get into that. But right now, I think that's where I'd leave it. We chose not to use this in our marketing efforts, our sales, even our editorial creation yet, because we're a small company. We have to kind of place our bets more narrowly, perhaps. Oddly, though, I think we're placing our bets on something that's perhaps the most ambitious of anything you do. We, as part of Renewed's AI strategy meetings, we had a wonderful presentation back in July by Merritt and Con Conlon, who did a beautiful presentation on all the ways that you can very cleverly use AI in marketing. And I'd love to do that. And I think we will, but that will be a next. You can also use it as my colleagues have said in devising things that'll help you navigate around your site, chatbots and so forth. And we'll probably do that too. But for now, it's just developing a product that we can use in enhancing search. And if you have an archive that goes back to, well, it goes back to 1951, but practically back to 1990, if you don't have an AI tool attached to your search, you're never going to find anything back in 1990. It's hard enough to find things last month. So there's a real advantage to this, and I'll be happy to talk about how we think we're going to get there, but we're not there yet.
Well, thanks, John. And you mentioned the process. My next question was very much about that. First of all, when did you start seriously exploring AI as an organization, and who's been involved and what has been the process? And John, I'll start with you since you were dancing right along the edge of that already.
Sure. Yeah. Back in March, we, at our board's request, set about a proof of concept that was led by, and I'm not going to say that I led it. I was invited in to join as kind of an outside person, and I'll talk about why that's important in a second. But as the outsider in a team that's almost wholly IT, but also had a couple of people from our content side involved. And that proof of concept was simply just to show how this might look. What tools you need to put in play to generate anything that might be useful on our website in a narrow way, not in a way that'd be infallible, but with a little bit of work. What sort of search platform, what sort of LLM you could twin with that search to come up with something that might look kind of neat. Well, that was a 13-month set of sprints that led to something that looked pretty successful. I mean, the board said, "Yep, we're certainly not there, but have at it and see what we can do by November." We have a big conference in November, and the hope was that we'd be able to produce something that would be worth showing to the public by that time. In the intervening months, what we've done is gone through a raft of different search platforms, a couple of different LLMs, focusing really right now on the search platforms, trying to figure out what type of platform will work best for a database such as ours, developing ways to look not just at the editorial content, which is in HTML, easily managed through our current article archive, but also bringing into that archive PDFs and other data tables that have been part of what we've published. Data as fielded data is easy. Data as graphics within articles is almost impossible, as Con Conlon at Merritt said. So we're not going to do that. But data as fielded data, yes. PDFs, we've just in the last week unlocked the PDF difficulty. So PDFs are now searchable within our database. So we've made some pretty good baby steps. But we've one of the tests is whether our editorial team will be able to come in and say, "Hey, this actually works for us as a tool to help us create articles," not because we want them to cheat and use AI to compose their articles, but we want AI to help them search back and find relevant information they can then pump into articles. So we have people, one person from each of 6 areas of our editorial squad, taste testing this and producing results that are then fed back to our IT team that use it to perfect the search platform and its relationship with the LLM, so we can come up with something that will look, we hope, intelligent, which is what AI, I think, stands for. Is that right? Intelligence, yes. We want intelligence as we go out to the public in November. Stay tuned. We don't know whether we'll get there, but it's this is part of the frontier. It's fun to be on the frontier. It can be incredibly frustrating too, and I'll leave the frustrating and fun parts for a later part of the show.
All right. I'm glad you were able to come up with that word, intelligence. As John has a great sense of humor for those who don't know, and John always tells me I'm a prime example of artificial intelligence. So I appreciate that. Rob, I'd love to hear what's been going on at NEJM Group.
Sure. I would say about a year ago, I was sort of observing lots of different people talking about AI and things they might want to do and projects we could do. And it seemed to me that needed to come together in some way so that we could more thoughtfully prioritize and maybe control is probably not the best word to use, but corral, let's say, what people were doing and thinking and where we wanted to place different bets or where we wanted to invest, where we wanted people to spend time. So I pitched putting together a AI task force, which it took me about 2 months to get that to a place where we actually had a meeting. So we had our first meeting of the task force in January, and we meet every 2 weeks. And it is a pretty multidisciplinary group of people. We have representation from legal, HR, editorial, marketing, sales, especially on the licensing side. We have tech people. So sort of, kind of across the whole organization. And it's a chance every couple of weeks to come together and hear what people have been working on. But we also have, to David's point about having a roadmap, we've started to build out a roadmap within there that we're then informing our operational teams about what we think should be prioritized. And I think the thing that everyone needs to think about too is we have plenty of other things going on that aren't about AI. And so how do you make sure that you're not overcompensating into one place? It's cool to be on the frontier, but we also have to make the donuts as well. So we're trying to figure out the best way to balance those things. And a task force has really helped us do that. We have a Slack channel that we use in between meetings to stay in touch. So it doesn't, and it's not, it's not some big, huge formal thing. So I think it's something that any organization could do. I think there are 10 of us who do it. And it's been really helpful.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Rob. David.
I'd say just about everybody, but we're a little bit smaller than Rob. So everybody's been involved in Elizabeth's led a couple of lunch and learn sessions on this. And we've had almost everybody in the company show up for those, just as far as understanding it. So you're starting to see more internal use. I can't say we're doing content creation with AI, but the potential's there, and we're doing internal research. And so I'd say pretty much everybody has been involved in this effort, and it's raised a bunch of questions, which we'll probably talk about later, but particularly around pricing the extra value. What are the licensing issues? Obviously, these are technology issues, but they're sales and marketing issues. They're operational issues. They're go-to-market strategies. So every single thing on our roadmap involves pretty much everybody else too. I guess nobody's getting off the hook on this one, I suppose. But I keep going back to licensing, but just because you think the complexity of the issues around, if we have an AI tool behind the paywall on our own content sets, but is information from that being pulled out and put into third-party public AI engines? So the trail of information is both a huge opportunity and one of the main reasons people have been terrified of AI. And that takes a different kind of management skills to manage that licensing situation, and it takes different contracts with your customers, different agreements. So even the business side of the operation is very much involved in trying to do this right, I would say.
Yeah, very interesting. So, and hearing about who's been involved with these efforts, makes me reminds me that AI has impacts, obviously, in developing new products and enhancing existing products, but there are also prominently editorial efficiencies you can perhaps gain. There are marketing efficiencies and sales efficiencies you can perhaps gain, and operational efficiencies such as the site-wide chat that Rob, you mentioned earlier, or other things like that. So I'm curious if any of the three of you have views on this. Where do you see the big payoff coming from AI in your business? Is there one of those buckets that you think this is, we'll do everything eventually, but this is the one that's really going to make it be worthwhile?
I start by, I think there are a lot of places to do it. In fact, I got like some of Robin's AI council meetings for Renewed have talked about, dozens of different ways for the way payoff. I suspect the short answer for BVR is simply that AI is going to be at the center of the value creation that allows us to get more seats at our bigger accounts. It's just a richer, sexier, more powerful product with AI, and it does have the opportunity of easily including new content sets and creating new content sets that will have value to new persona within our customer groups. Again, we have I think Regina is on this call. She's the head of our licensing sales. AI is going to richly empower her ability to get to new customers. So that would be one example of another payoff. But I think literally, if we have a $2,000 price, getting it to a $3,000 price, getting it to a $4,000 per seat price, that's the money issue for me on AI.
Yeah. John, Rob?
Rob, you want to go, or
John, you go.
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree with David, and I disagree with David. I mean, it's absolutely the case right now. This is something that
You disagree with me. Yeah.
No, I'm going to go with the part first. The agreement is that right now, if we can get this, if we can master it in a way that's pleasing to customers, and it isn't just sort of like, really, you think that's the answer? Nice tool, but you're only 85% there. If we can get it from 85 to 95, if we get it close to 100% of what people are expecting, and it will enrich the experience you have on our website, the relevance, the depth of the answers that people get as they query our content will be terrific. It'll be a real mark of distinction for about 6 months, and then others in our space, I'm sure, will catch up. I think back to the first efforts in machine learning that were applied against newswires when I was a much younger guy in a slightly different end of the business. And algorithmic traders were just desperate to get a hold of newswires and apply their machine learning sentiment tagging and all the rest of the good stuff, for which Nobel prizes were handed out this week. And that was terrific. But there were half-lives to the huge amounts of money that the hedge funds would pay for that kind of advantage that corresponded to the availability. And as soon as everybody got them, the advantage disappeared, and it just became part of the existing product. I can't remember who it was, but one of our many clever Renewed folks said at one point, the reason that they were into AI right now and exploring it, either by developing it themselves or developing it from the outside, was because he didn't want to wake up a year from now and be the only one on the block for whom word search and a non-grammatic, non-natural language answer was the response on his website. He didn't want to be left out. And we don't want to be left out, and we want to get ahead so we can enrich the experience. I think as a means of advancing, great. As survival, absolutely. So there'll be some first mover advantage to this, but that first mover advantage may well disappear. But again, if you're gonna, you do want to play on this frontier. There's just no real advantage to be sitting back and waiting for it to overtake you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think, John, those are great points, and I agree with both of my fellow panelists here. So I won't retread that. But I think that there's an opportunity here to think about, can you, and I think both John, you and David are striving maybe in different ways to try to find, eventually, is there a different paradigm here for how people are going to interact and consume our content that goes, that kind of goes beyond the replacement of keyword search and into more of a conversation with the content that you have. But how can you start thinking about that? At least from our point of view, we're trying to think about this from, does this give us a way to interact and engage with sort of the next generation of subscribers that we could have? We have an aging subscriber base. We have good relationships with medical students and medical residents. Yet, our individual circulation file is certainly heavily weighted toward people who have been in practice for quite some time. And so we're trying to think about how to use AI to bring younger people to us, and to try to think about how to replace what we know will eventually be losing. So I do think that this does become table stakes. John, you're right. So how much of a first mover advantage there is, I'm not sure there is a lot. I do think you only have one chance to, maybe you only have one chance to do this right. So, because we're in the medical field, clearly we're being pretty careful as we think about how a co-pilot would work, let's say, and how people would be getting answers from, natural language queries on our site. So we're being pretty conservative, I think, in where we are with that. Because of brand, and I think that's probably true for everybody. So I think there's some caution here, but at the same time, I think keyword search as a paradigm for interacting with content is dead, and we have to move into this. But we're really trying to think about how it could be completely different. I think is what we're trying to challenge ourselves to do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys remember the age of taxonomies, when to do a really good search on a database, you needed to know the taxonomy, and our IT guys are kind of struggling with that, saying, well, our users now don't have a taxonomy. They do keyword search, they do simple searches, Boolean searches. Unlike some other platforms, we don't have our own taxonomy, but as an IT tool to organizing the database and making it visible, winning the search with keywords or tags and the vector search program is right now one of the things we've had to come to grips with. There's a lot of stuff that's great off the shelf, but it only gets you results that are only so successful. It's not about training the LLM, it's about tweaking the search to give the search, make the search effective so the LLM then can be effective. We're going to get away certainly from keyword searches on the website, certainly tags or taxonomy search on the website. But in the background, the AI is going to be using those even more to be that much more refined and dragging up things that it spots as related to that natural language question that was just entered into the machine. So, it's just so fascinating. I'm getting into the frustrating parts of the frontier, as I think now. I was hoping we'd be done by now and we'd be producing beautiful search results, but 4 months beyond the proof of concept, and we're still wrestling with a lot of back end stuff just to make it work so that we can even begin to tweak and improve the search results. And I know that's really frustrating for our staff, because our staff wants to bang away and get really clever, results. And it's much more basic. Our development right now is at a much more basic stage. So it's frustratingly slow. I'm sorry, David, please.
Yeah, just adding, I mean, because I agree, I think this is going to appeal to different persona, whether they're older or younger. I assume they'll trend younger, as Rob said. But but there are, I mean, there are people out there now in different industries that are, say, write me a grant proposal, and AI is producing it, and it's good, like really profound things. Write me a business plan in a new industry. Okay, there it is. You got, and then especially with the iterative search. So I think the revenue model out of this will math. We're doing these baby steps to make that experience as rich as possible. The revenue model, again, it's going to be licensing specific and very clearly legally documented use cases for new persona. So it's like, okay, because I think the other thing that refer to what we're doing as small language models, as because we're not Google, but within our niche markets, that's more than enough. That's good. But if you say, okay, I'm going to license this AI use specific to this large customer, there are 3 huge value opportunities there. One, you're exposing both your data and your written content, especially in the medical fields. It's the data that AI is exposing. It's not what appears in Scientific American, so you're getting a richer thing there. The other opportunity is if you can get people to work in your AI environment, you're essentially becoming a collective licensor, because you're exposing people to your content, and then you may be pulling other content into your small language model. So you, as a content provider, and BVR, we're doing this in baby steps, but we're really, really making progress on it. I think we got a long way to go, like all of us, but it's like the possibility of exposing. If a customer comes in with a query that's complicated, sophisticated, and demands a large answer, you are exposing them to a great deal more content in an AI environment than you were in a Google search environment. So that's worth a very specific, hopefully large dollar licensing kind of thing. So I would say it's traditional licensing the way we've always done it, but it's for very specific internal and external uses, and it won't. I think the important thing there is, if you have a license with a customer, we all know how to do that. That's a 1, 2, 3 year renewal rate, 97% kind of situation. So that's not AI as a first mover. That's AI for using AI to get new contracts that will have lifetime value, maybe even stronger than our old traditional subscriptions. So that's kind of the vision. And John, we were laughing about this on the setup call. Are we at 0 or are we at 60? And we're probably all at 2 miles an hour right now, sub pedestrian rates. But we're all starting, to see value there, and our customers are seeing value.
Yeah, and I don't want to at all say that there isn't value. You'll be wondering whether how much it mounts on top of what we get initially. The first go could be really great if, and this is the if, we discover as we go out to clients that they are satisfied that the quality of the results are worth a dollar. Meaning, okay, great, energy intelligence. We can now go back and see what happened to energy prices in the first weeks after the first Gulf War, 1991, to the extent that's useful to people sort of as testing to say what could happen to oil prices against some future war. First Gulf War, second Gulf War, a couple of other events. How did energy prices go? And that'll tell us give us some projection on how energy prices might go in the first weeks of a new war. That ought to be pretty darn useful and pretty. How many people will make use of it that way? I don't know, but for those who do it, that ought to be priced pretty high. I guess what I'm getting is for some. There may be some gradations for some industries, financial industry. This may have a lot more interest than others. Big oil may not be making those kind of same bets or willing to place a lot of money against an AI exploration because they don't need the answer as instantaneously as, say, a financial guy might. There's some really, really interesting. So I guess there's some really, really interesting pricing implications that we haven't fully explored. I'd love to hear what you guys are thinking without revealing anything that's too confidential, but just thinking to take advantage. I mean, just at what point, how do you prove to people in that particular industry that it's now worth 2x rather than just X as a license for a year or over the course of 3 years?
And John, that's kind of a function of whether you're talking about existing customers that you have, or to David's point around sort of this, this marriage of data and written content.
Yeah.
Are you able to create something that creates a new class of customers for you? People who before, without that marriage, you didn't have anything for them,
right?
Really, because they couldn't really figure out what their use case was. So does it open up a whole new area for you? And then can you think about pricing in a different way based on you're opening up to another class of customer, let's say? I don't know, David.
Yeah, I can maybe two specific examples quickly. The CCC is essentially, I would say, doing a 2 to 7% premium on AI-enabled licenses that are very limited. It's internal use only. They're the contracts are 75-page contracts, and I think we're going to need to get sophisticated on that too, because Paul Gerbino was originally going to be on this call, but he essentially wanted to say the sky is falling here, China's stealing all your content, and things like that, and for whatever reason he passed that on to me. I don't think that's the case, but we need to have bulletproof legal documents to support us on that one. At least there's still going to be abusers, but I would say so there's a case where that value has got a monetary number attached to it. But I would Elizabeth and Lucretia and I within the next week are talking to one of our partner contents. It's in the area of industry research, and I don't know how that discussion will go, but it's the beginning of essentially BVR positioning itself as a business valuation content marketplace. If we start pulling partner content into our AI engine, we've literally created a collective license at that point. That is a marketplace, and that's more value. If that product's worth $1,700, let's say, with just our stuff in it, and now it's rich, and there's also it's a different royalty model out to your content partners, but that content marketplace is hugely more valuable than our stuff alone. So let's say that is that a 200% increase? Well, I don't have the answers to that, but that I think that maybe if we look at ourselves as content, our AI engine is the center of a new content marketplace that's going to find new buyers and new premium pricing and a bunch of other things. So those are a couple of examples. And we don't have any of those licenses yet, but we're bringing content in actively now. And we do have, we've got all these good use cases of customers using even what we have at this point. So So I see a lot of possibility going forward.
Yeah, so you'd be aggregating, it's kind of like a mini LexisNexis or Factiva.
Yeah, it's really, yeah, but yeah, and very specialized.
Very focused. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're not running into, you're better than just going to Chat GPT.
Right.
You got
It's-
so much behind it. And then you're also, no, you cannot use this in your public work product. No, you cannot use this in your marketing materials. No, you're getting people to pay to turn specific use cases on, um and documenting that. I don't, you know, that and that going back to Ed, you're who's involved, try to figure out this without having everybody in the company involved here. This affects everybody, even including our traditional editorial staff. If they're writing into a subscription product and then it's 2 weeks before it gets into your AI database, you just diminish the value of, in our case, we have this gorgeous guy, Andy, who's like creating huge amounts of content. Every day that it doesn't get under the AI engine is delaying its value to the customers. So it's even, it's changing workflows, all those sort of things. Anyway. And that's what we're all trying to solve together, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and the editorial guys can be some of your best testers. I mean, because they really, I mean, if they're going in looking for they know their fields better than
Yeah.
the rest of us who just kind of stand on the side and cheer on the business. So they can tell you when you really have got something versus something that's not quite fully baked. If they're getting relevant, complete results that they've never seen before, then that can be really exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a neat thing.
Yeah. If you just look at your company in your publishing operation in those kind of new models, like I'm totally responding, Rob, to what you said about, where's the value,
Yeah.
Yeah. So someone, David, I think you may have mentioned earlier, why people are we're so scared of AI. Somebody mentioned that, and I think business owners and senior executives were concerned particularly about the whole issue of copyright infringement, and I think related to that was journalists were scared they were going to lose their jobs. And I'm undoubtedly that is happening, I think, in other sectors. I haven't heard anybody in Renewed talking about AI is going to be able to enable us to get rid of journalists, just the opposite. And I think, part of that is if what you're trying to do is fill up pages with editorial content so you can run ads around it and other things, you can get whatever AI crap. And also you may not be the kind of business that's so concerned about potential copyright issues. I don't think any of us want to be building our business on and then find out 2 years from now the Supreme Court has decided you owe X% royalties because you were drawing on this LLM that was, whatever. I also don't think, and we talked about this on the setup call, not many of us in Renewed are in a position to be striking big deals with the big players to contribute our content into LLMs. I do think, David, your point about we can aggregate our SLMs and become sort of that vertical website of 25 years ago, the promise of a vertical website with AI and bringing in a few other content partners sounds really exciting. But the reason that I think, job loss and copyright infringement has been less of an issue, or the job loss concern is less of an issue, is because of this copyright infringement concern. And David, I'd love to get your thoughts on that. You mentioned Paul Gerbino has certainly talked about this. And then obviously the Copyright Clearance Center, this is very core to what you do. So I was wondering if you could talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, I mean, it just quickly, I mean, because I do think there are threats and there's, but maybe I don't know how many of you on this call know Tracy Armstrong, who's the CEO of Copyright Clearance Center. Obviously she's getting this question 250 times a day right now from just about everybody. So she's gotten pretty facile at answering it. And her standard answer is because it's like, oh, we're going to lose control of all of our content. First of all, that was probably true 6 months ago, but now you've got the Google instance of AI on the search engine. You've got what Microsoft's doing. You've got the tool we're using. These are tools that are attributive. They're identifying the sources. So I think the technology has had to respond to the IP theft problem, and it's starting to do that now. But Tracy's answer is, you think this is difficult? We figured out how to get licensing off of people who are making illegal photocopies. This is easy. So I kind of try to take her perspective on this, because the technology does leave breadcrumbs. You know where the content is going, and with the newer, even Chat GPT 4.0 is attributive now, so the problem's starting to go away. That being said, obviously the potential for stealing everything you have is enhanced by technology. So I think there's still going to be bad actors. The geopolitical, this is AI somehow become a geopolitical issue, that kind of stuff. So I think, I would just say to all of us, the solution to that is really bulletproofing our licensing arrangements with our customers. So it's clearly documented that if they're stealing your crap, it's outside of the use that's allowed. And most of us our existing licenses before AI were pretty precise. BVR's is pretty solid. Now it needs to be enhanced for this new use. And then I would also say, trying to control, to the degree we have uses, try to make sure it's in your ecosystem. So you're training your customers to work on your AI instance as much as possible, so you control the outcomes, rather than saying, okay, here's our large language thing, and you can take and do whatever you want with it. You can throw it in Chat GPT, you can use it on your own internal instances, that sort of thing. Just being very clear about that. And again, I mentioned Regina, who's on this call. I think we are getting outside third-party AI engines. There's one that does what's called 409A valuations, or used to be called that. There's an AI engine that's trying to build a tool specifically to do that kind of valuation. That company would compete against our customers, but they need data. So that we're starting to see, there's a possibility of licensing our small language model to niche tech players too, so those sort of things are out there. Those need really bulletproof licensing agreements before you do anything. Anyway, so I would just say, obviously I don't see this as the sky is falling. I just see it as one more place. All of us, our small renewed publishers, need to be world class, in our licensing and our technology. You can't be sloppy around any of this stuff, or you are going to be victimized seriously by losing total control of your content set.
Yeah, I mean, I think my initial worry was an LLM. As we play with an LLM and it swoops up everything and goes off to the next guy and uses all the things we've taught it to enhance the next guy's efforts to come up with a great energy AI.
Yeah.
And that's not, in our experience, not going to be the issue. The issue is still what happens if one of those guys that signed a license decides to breach the license. The breadcrumbs are there. Absolutely, you
Yeah.
follow them, and you might follow them all the way to the squirrel's nest and say, whoa, this guy's been stealing breadcrumbs for the last 6 months, and it's our entire database. And you present the license, and he says, yeah, but you know what? I'm over here in Timbuktu or distant Kalamazoo, and I'm not part of the rule of law, and come and get me. How much you gonna, how much you gonna get from me? I have no assets anyway that your court's gonna be able to assign to you. So there's that fear, and it's a fear that we have had for years. That's
Yeah.
why, that's why clearinghouse is
Yeah.
that the best contracts don't necessarily keep you from being screwed, but you still need them so that when you get screwed, you can kind of go to court. And if you can't go to court, what do? Well, then you're kind of stuck. So
Oh, go ahead. Sorry,
I
Jeff.
was going to say, so we've tried to kind of build our defenses in a way that say, okay, we've got a contract, but we're also going to be that much more careful not to let people in, because in this day and age, it doesn't take very long for somebody to come in and steal you blind. It's just a couple of days, and they've scraped everything off of that protected website, and they're going off and using it with God knows what intentions in some other place.
Oh, I was going to say, John, I have to recommend everyone. I don't know if any of you have read Nick Hornby's latest book, which is, I think, called Prince and Dickens. And he recounts Charles Dickens came to the US several times because at that point, US copyright law was, if it was published internationally, nobody owed any royalties. So Dickens got laughed at for coming over here to complain that they published, Nickleby got published in the US before it was serialized fully in the UK, and Dickens never got a penny for it. So we come from a country that we were great thieves back in the day. Now it's a great book, by the way, if anybody wants. I really enjoyed it, but I think the enforcement issues, all I can say on that, John, are they're not, it's been hard to go after abusers all along. And I do think here we have, at least we've got some technological gates we can throw at the problem.
Yeah.
That were very, very hard. And I would maybe, like, for renewed members, generally speaking, joining CCC has not been a big revenue, getting on their licensing program hasn't been a big revenue thing, because their major revenue model is in STM. It's in, the biosciences, medical, all that sort of stuff. But the AI licenses, they're starting to get royalties from the financial world where we are. Because the breadcrumbs are clearer, and their licenses cover internal use of subscribed materials. That's what CCC's licenses covered. So they're trying to get revenue from a broader group of users around the fact that people are taking your content now and putting it into Chat GPT for internal uses. If they're sending it outside, that's still out of license, if they're exposing that. But I think even if you're not in the STM world, might be a good time to sign up for the CCC license, because it might start yielding.
Well, and also, just for your standard license, give a pitch to our friends at Powley Gibson, and they can help you rewrite a contract to include AI protections. Once again, Renewed to the rescue.
John, you beat me to it. I was going to mention Powley Gibson, which is the law firm that works closely with Renewed and provides provides a good amount of free consultation with you as well. So please feel free to use them, and you can reach out to Lindsay Lee executive director here at Renewed, who can put you in touch with them. We are just about out of time. I had a couple more questions, but this was fantastic. Thank you to John and Rob and David. I want to remind people this has been recorded, and so Lindsay will be sending out around to everybody the link to watch this, so you can share this with other people in your organization. It's also Lindsay, will there be a summary of this sent out? I know we. Am I correct in that?
I can
and-
definitely send one out. That's not a problem. I can do
Okay,
a summary
yeah,
and the recording.
Yeah, that'd be great, just to help. Isn't AI wonderful? Fantastic. And this is going to be a obviously an ongoing topic of discussion in our industry. This is not the first, but one of many to come. So thank you all for attending, and we will see you next time.
Ed, Rob, and John, thanks for the fun calls setting this up too. Just, the more we talk about this, the more we're going to figure out what to do. So
Absolutely.
process is helpful. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
David and
Great.
Rob. It's always
All right,
fun
bye-bye.
working.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.